ministry that uses this sanctuary for worship. So this is Reverend Ronnie Joel. Ronnie is going to stand up, and so you can see this handsome man here who leads the congregation.
Hello, good evening and yapai. My name is Wolf Alec. I'm from the Marshall Islands. I'm a medical doctor. It has been a privilege to work with the patients that were exposed to the radiation for a number of years. In fact, a lot of the people in the film that you saw, I knew his patients and acquaintances, so it's very relevant to the topic tonight. The nuclear radiation issue is a very loaded topic in the country. It's going to take a lot of time to talk about this. In fact, it's a point of political contention right now between the two countries. There's a lot of unresolved issues going on right now. So it's a loaded topic. I'll try to confine my speech, my talk to the general health consequences of radiation for people in the Marshall Islands. Today, or actually yesterday, 60 years ago, it's one day here in the Marshall Islands. The world witnessed the most horrific nuclear testing in the history of mankind on the island of Bikini in the Marshall Islands. Sorry about that. The Marshall Islands, the Marshall Islands was the ground zero of the United States thermonuclear weapon testing program from 1946 to 1958. It spanned 12 years. During this period, 67 thermonuclear bombs were detonated, a total yield of which was equal to 7,200 Hiroshima bombs. In other words, 1.2 Hiroshima bombs detonated daily for the next 12 years. It represented over 85% of all the US atomic bomb testing at the time. So you can imagine it was a very impressive and incredible radiation being unleashed into the environment. The general health consequences of the nuclear testing on the Marshallese people are numerous, and it can be thought in three ways. One, the direct and acute exposure of high radiation to the people. And you saw in the film today, the folks were actually describing what happened to them. There was the acute radiation illness as a result of direct contact with the debris from the BRAVO shots. And number two, the chronic and long-term exposure to low levels of ionic radiation. And last but not the least, and I think the most devastating, is the destruction of lands, culture, and displacement of people and communities. So in 1954, the rural atoll community, these are the downwinders of Bikini Island, suffered major acute radiation illness, which includes skin burns, hair loss, nausea, vomiting, and also a destruction to the thyroid glands and the bone marrow. Thyroid cancers, as we all know, soon follow years after the result of exposure to I-131, that's the ionic radiation. In fact, according to a 2004 National Cancer Institute study presented to the U.S. Congress, it says that there would be likely an increase in 200% of thyroid cancers in the Marshall Islands from the baseline as a result of the test. Other types of cancers later occur or can be happen in a latent phase. And these include leukemia. And as you can, one of the gentlemen in the film is saying his grandson died from leukemia. Solid cancers from the organ systems as a result of a cumulative effect of the radiation, which gets in the environment and in the food chain. These radiogenic cancers can be latent or occur later in life. In fact, a lot of the cancers that these people, happen to them when they were kids, or exposure happened when they were kids, only to be realized 40 or 30 years later. All of these types of cancers are prevalent in the Marshall Islands today. Also, radiogenic diseases are even seen among Marshallese population. Previously thought that we're not exposed to radiation. So we're finding out that this thing is widespread. It's not just confined to the so-called exposed islands. We're seeing all over the Marshall Islands. In fact, even this thing might be even showing up in Guam or other places. So this is widespread. Also, scientific studies have confirmed that the ionizing radiations can also lead to non-cancerous diseases such as stroke, heart attack, diabetes, and respiratory disorders, and even can cause intergenerational defect in genes passing from one population to another, or to their offspring. Furthermore, it increases the devastating impact of the nuclear testing. It's on the destruction of culture, people, and community. Forced evacuation and alienation from the land has destroyed the physical and cultural means of sustaining a way of life. It has disrupted the cultural norms and social hierarchy which have bound these islands for generations. Marshallese people, just like any Pacific Island cultures, are closely tied to their lands. Land is sacred. It forms the basis of social structure and cultural heritage. You destroy the land, and you destroy the people and the culture. Even after all these years, the lingering question remains: did the U.S. thermonuclear weapon testing program cause any lasting negative impact on Marshallese people? The answer, I believe, is resounding yes. No matter how you look at it, it has caused cancers, it has caused genetic defects, it has caused cancers, diseases, and even post-traumatic stress disorder. And most of all, it has destroyed the land, the culture, the community, and the people. Even today, the nuclear victims are still living as nomads in their own country. As the earlier gentleman alluded to, they're not living in their lands anymore. They've been taken to small islands, It's not their lands. They've been destroyed. So it should be no surprise that many Marshallese people, or Micronesians, who come to Hawaii with the mainland United States, are here in search of better health for themselves and opportunities. But most of these folks are in fact looking for better health care, diseases as a result of the nuclear testing. That's the U.S. nuclear legacy in the Marshall Islands that we must not forget. Thank you, and kumodala.
Not to make light of anything, but I think the women of the church want to sing some, share some of their culture with you, so we're going to pause and have them sing, and then have maybe a few responses from non-Micronesia. Have the youth? Okay, I think the Marshallese university students are here, and I think they just sang on Saturday, so they're gonna well, maybe before they as they gather, maybe I invite Jim Albertini, who's doing some survey of depleted uranium at Fujiyoshi, to share a little bit about what they're doing and reaction to the discovery. Aloha, everyone. Aloha.
I want to echo the words of Tony DeBroom, who was born apparently 1 year before I was born. And it's evil. What the United States has done to the people of the Marshall Islands is evil. And as somebody who was born in the United States, I want to express my deep sympathy and apology to the people of the Marshall Islands for what's been done in the name of the United States. It's evil. And it must never be allowed to happen again to anywhere on the earth. I would hope that out of this real burden can come a voice for the world to see the evil of nuclear weapons and how we must work to abolish nuclear weapons, so that never again is this kind of thing conducted, either in testing or in war. I've spent nearly 50 years now here in Hawaii working against militarism, seeing what has happened to the Hawaiian people, the overthrow of their government, the military occupation here, the militarization of the islands. And right in the center of the big island here is one of the largest military bases outside of the United States, Lokebol. And it's been contaminated with radiation weapons, a substance called depleted uranium. And the military bombs this base that they know is contaminated, and it spreads it in the wind. And according to Dr. Lauren Pang, this depleted uranium, when it's hit with high explosives, it turns into what are called oxide particles. And when it's inhaled, it's the most dangerous, deadly form of radiation, depleted uranium oxide particles. So the cancer statistics on the Big Island are the highest in all of Hawaii. Is it related to Puakaloa? We don't know. The evidence is not in. But I want to dedicate my life to stopping the bombing at Puakaloa, demilitarizing the island, and work to where peace is the shelter of everyone's dignity on the face of this earth. So I'm glad to be with you tonight. Again, I express my sympathy, my apology, and my solidarity to work for never bikini anywhere in the world. Thank you.
Liliuokalani still here? Yeah. I wonder if she would share. She came from Waimea and is of Hawaiian royalty, but also has a link with the BRAVO tests with her dad. So I wondered if she would share. Thank you.
Aloha, Mai. Aloha. My name is May Liliuokalani Ross. Frederick Donald Ross is my father. He's part Cherokee, part Scotch. He and his brothers got involved in the military to save his family from what they had already suffered in the Trail of Tears. And now they're in the generations of not wanting to have to deal with that, but observing it in America, their own Cherokee people. So they joined the military, thinking maybe they will be able to save their people. Can we put this over there? I'll try not to take up too much of your time, so I wrote whatever I could here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be looking at my paper. Jim Albertini had asked me to come to give testimony. He knew my father well. And so last night I looked at videos of their testimony in 1976 to 1979 on the nuclear wastes on Oahu at the airport, in Pearl Harbor, and stationed elsewhere across the Hawaii Islands. My father married my mother, a pure Hawaiian, Sarah Peggy Hall, and their union itself is truly a story of God's intervention. He was an Army heavy equipment operator selected to instruct his fellow servicemen, 115 to be exact, sent to Bikini. He was there to assist in the hydrogen bomb with his heavy equipment operations and whatever it was that they were instructed to do on the island. Unknown to these men exactly what they were appointed to do or how much of what they were doing they were going to participate in. My father and the 115 men were directed to go into various different environment settings. Some men were placed on ships, others were on the beach. This biomedical study of men in wooden buildings located in various areas. And my father was directed to go into a bunker underground. As my father described it, he heard his men screaming, but he stayed in his bunker. As the heat swelled, all he could feel was the burn in his lungs. And he fell to the ground and stayed where he was. Even though he was burning, he wanted to check on his men coming out of his so-called security place. As described, skin was dropping off of their bones. They had diarrhea. Some of them said they couldn't feel anything, but they were secreting everything from their bodies. They did various tests in Glann and Enewetak, even though these men were still sick. After their service, they were told, "Thank you very much, and you now can go home." My father suffered by himself, not knowing what was really happening with him. My mother told me I was born a blister, and I had no idea what that meant. All I knew is that I could only take her word for it. Until I had my own. I was apparently at my birth, my parents attended to me as I did my youngest son, the best that I knew how. Every crack and every crevice of his body was riveted. with sores. But I wasn't going to know the impact of my children until they got older. But let me share a little bit about myself. When I was in the 5th grade, I started to show sores on my body. There was pain. Didn't really know what was going on, but my father knew. He had an inclination because he was suffering from this too. No matter how many doctors we saw, they didn't know what it was. They called it all kinds of stuff. Until we met, and please forgive me, the period that I'm speaking of is during a time that I lived in Oregon and Idaho. So during the winter weather, my father and I, we were always very hot. We never really felt too much of the cold. And my brother above me, there's 10 of us, but there's 2 of us that were affected at the time, or at least evidence of some kind of breakout. The sores that appeared on my body got so bad that they had to stick these little plastic tubes between my toes because I was turning into like a duck. My feet were all molding together. I had no skin on the bottom of my feet. My toenails were falling off on my feet and my hands. So they were going to amputate my legs. And one of my father's military officers was traveling the United States with only his hand. Everything else they amputated. And my father went to see him 2 days before my scheduled amputation. And he told my father, do not let them amputate any part of your daughter, because then there will be no evidence of what has happened. So my father asked me. He asked me if I wanted to have my leg amputated, or if I wanted to stand and fight. As you can see, I decided to stand and fight with my dad. The United States didn't hear my father, or even considered any of the sores, which I brought pictures, is very similar to what you have up here of myself and my dad. So we took it outside of the United States and went to Japan, traveled throughout the Pacific, even went as far as Germany. Traveled the world to gather information because no one was listening to a soldier who was told that he was there to help the people of the world, only to be also a victim, and neither helped by the very thing that was supposedly there to help him. My father was told that he needed to move to a climate that would be more steady instead of in a colder country where the climate's varied extremely, or he wouldn't live over the age of 30. So we moved here to Hawaii. It seemed as though everything got worse. Everything just imploded. And for my dad, he was drowning in his own lungs, his own heart, his own everything. And nobody knew or didn't want to attend to him. They told him to go to the VA, but the VA wasn't going to help him. He was a guinea pig too, and that's exactly how he felt and I felt. He died at the age of 55. but certainly not without a fight. When I had my daughter, Kaipokaolano, I had 2 placentas. They wouldn't let me see the second one. She was small. She was only 4 pounds. She's a dynamite of a lady today, but she's also dealing with her thyroid issues. My eldest son, who is showing various skin problems. But my youngest son, he was born the blister that now I understood what my mother was talking about me. So I'm glad that we're here in Hawaii, so my son doesn't have to go through the things, the suffering and the things that I had to go through by ourselves in America. But here we are on 2 sides of this platform. We're dealing with people who live in the Pacific, the life of the living people in the Pacific who have a value. And now we're dealing with soldiers who are told that they are warriors of the United States, left to suffer as well in their own. They need to see what's happening here. There are various other soldiers. Doug Rocky is another one who is fighting for the wrongs that are happening in the military and to the people around the world. Beyond Treason is another documentation of the people who are fighting, the military who's fighting for military people who are not informed of what it was that they were directed to do. But there is something that was told to me by my kupuna, my elder. She said to me, "Baby, do you know that uranium belongs to Keakua? Do you know that comes from the depths of Mother Earth?" I want that to sink in for a minute because you and I both have something in common. We are being removed from our culture. And our culture is to embrace the Aina and Mother Earth, to embrace Keakua and our existence for a purpose to serve Him. So let that sink in for a moment. Uranium and all these elements that the military use for their evil devices actually from Mother Earth. And she told me, "You pray, baby. You pray every day that those elements that was given to Mother Earth be an empowering force to you. That Keakua use you for its benefit." And I believe that's why we exist and why we are here. Keakua is not done with us. Sorry, I kind of went off track there, but I want to thank you, Malo Keakua. God bless each and every one of you. God bless those that suffer in the silence of their homes, not knowing anything. One more thing. My mother, when I was conceived, my father was highly radiated with depleted uranium, and it caused my mother to burn. And several times she went into the hospital, and they finally had to tell her, you cannot have any more children. But only years later did we find out that the male semen carried the genetics of depleted uranium. But the United States didn't want to recognize it, but Japan did at the time. And so did Germany. Today, it seems to have gone silent. I want to thank you for your time and allowing me to be a part of you. Aloha.
Enos, yardım talı koyar orang gani. Doğal karponjo menarapin begini dulu orang Fujiyoshi Enos tumpang.
I came to the United States in 2014 for medical reasons. I had some illnesses, but before I came here, I was a councilman for the Bikinians for more than 20 years.
Elagal penonton lucu ini juga sekarang pergi dalam television tahu normal. Elagal juga lewat dalam television dengan mau kerja juga kali.
I'm very glad that we are doing this evening so we may recall and witness some of the events that took place with regards to the testing of the nuclear bombs in our islands.
Hilo terang kerpondel mahal. Hilo lagan lengan dengan Congress dan daerah pemerintah sana udah lupakan orang itu dengan pulau yang apa nama orang itu dia sudah lagi.
When I was a councilman for the Bikinians, I spent many, I made many trips to Washington to lobby to Congress and the leaders of the U.S. with regards to the needs of the Bikinians. Good evening to all. First of all, I would like to give thanks to God for this evening. I'd like to thank all the pastors here, our special guests who have made time to come to this event, and for everybody who joined us tonight to remember March 1st.
Kalau kayaknya remata ng lahat video ito yung video ni Emol.
We all watched the video up here. It's a video that shows the true events that occurred.
Video ni aban kenal kan armijin rongla, kena ke Hilo, air agar kemana ke mana Hilo Island in Marshall Island, Bikini atoll, Rarik kemana ke armijin rongla.
If you'll notice, the video spoke a lot about the island of Roma. And that is because During the testing, the dropping of the bomb on Bikini, the people of Rongelap were not relocated at that time. They remained on the island.
Army Rongelap Raini, Recep Chugai Rongelap, Ar Chugai Ijogo Chabreo, Chenwamba. Ichibile Gair Pet, Yim Chemarompa, Reluji, Hilo.
The people of Rongelap no longer reside on the atoll of Rongelap. They all are spread all over the U.S. and other places. Essentially, they have lost their homeland.
Raini Rekabos Chigir, Marshall Island, Iligan Marshall Island, Image Chamaka Kachet, Chigir Pen, U.S. government.
Today, the Rongelap people are still trying to find a place to call home. They continue to ask the U.S. government for a place to stay, to reside in the U.S. outside of the Marshall Islands.
Friday, Elang Army Rongelap Biar Chaho, Delabra Chubum, Lalabra Chuma, Elang Changam, Elang Chinam, Elang Jem Chadam, Emelang Nejum, Emia Rilap, Change or Riding, Radiation.
Today, many of the Rongelap people have passed away. Many of my grand aunties and uncles, my aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters or cousins, they've all passed away due to illnesses related to radiation.
Hilo Raini, Kangai Pergi Hilo Hawaii, Kamalausan, Kana Naman Chagini Mawat, Imaman Chukunar Pen, and Jalap, Binin Kawadada, Choren, and the Chilatan Bunil.
Today, as I live in Hawaii, I look around me and I see this beautiful island. It's very peaceful, we're comfortable. There's no reason to fear or be afraid of any harm to our families.
Narwa Eligada, and Kajo Eligada, and Kajo Egypt. Mekumna Law in Chalagan Army Rongelap, Never Law Hawaii, George, Leer.
Words to you tonight, to all of us here in this church. If you know of a person from Rongelap, please be kind to that person, help them, and make sure that they are well.
Waiting to have you share with us.